The Fable and Folly Network supports creators of exceptional audio stories, including the one you're listening to right now. If you love our shows, we want to hear from you. Complete our listener survey at fableandfolly.com/survey. This will help us learn more about you, what you like, what you'd like to hear more of, and how we can maintain an inclusive, safe atmosphere. As a thank you for your participation, we have extras and behind-the-scenes content from your favorite shows. Fans make the network what it is. Thanks for listening, and we can't wait to hear from you. Find our listener survey at fableandfolly.com/survey today.
For some reason, I seem to always need to obscure my voice. It's like I'm embarrassed to hear my writing out loud. I'd like to think it's a disconnect of taste versus practice. But I'm not a poet. That's okay. Check. For some reason, I seem to always need to obscure my voice. I'm embarrassed to hear my thoughts. I'd like to think it's... For some reason, I seem to always need to obscure my voice. It's like I'm embarrassed to hear my thoughts. I'd like to think it's a disconnect of taste versus practice. I'm not a poet. That's okay. It's like I'm embarrassed to hear my thoughts. It's like I'm embarrassed to hear my thoughts out loud. I'd like to think it's a disconnect of taste versus practice. It's like I'm embarrassed to hear my writing out loud. I'd like to think it's a disconnect of taste versus practice. But I'm not a poet. That's okay.
I don't even like the phrase self-care. It's more like survival.
It is important to me that, like, if I'm hand making the rope, it is important that it's all kind of handmade.
And then it blew up. I was confronted with my own mortality of looking at that, almost as if, is the forward jump
and that it's not
better
something
than
that was
the backwards
with
experience?
The machine or like
I'm
made
unable
like
to
that.
fall asleep, and I have been for years without having something to distract me.
Since my dad got sick, I've been falling asleep on my face. It's the only way I can go down, with a hand against my forehead and one curled lower. Going to sleep at night, I settle in on my side. It's a habit, maybe. I've always been a side sleeper. But I don't sleep on my side anymore. I lay there, feels like an hour or more. I know it isn't. Trying my left side, then my right, then my left again. Eventually, I shove my hand against my face, put my other arm under my forehead to make sure I can breathe, and lay down on my front. It feels like it should be profoundly uncomfortable, but almost instantly, I'm asleep.
because that's what I need, and that's how I'm going to keep myself from
And
having
then
a
I think
nervous
the kind
breakdown.
of bad way
Just
of getting
focus,
in the
get it all done,
weeds,
and then it'll be
which
fine.
again can sometimes yield fruit, was kind of what I mentioned about if you have having an idea for a project, but getting really kind of laser focused into one aspect of that project, where sometimes that can be a good thing because that thing that you get focused on might be more
Just
interesting
thoughts
than
will
the
circle,
whole.
circle for hours, and I'm unable to
But
fall
also that
asleep.
thing that you're really focused on might not be important at all. But you spend countless hours trying to get this thing perfect and make this one little aspect work that's just kind
And
of
I have been
bugging
for
you.
years without having something to distract me,
And
so that
it's
I
the
can
kind of
focus
thing when
on
you
that
sit
instead
back
of
and
my
look at the
thoughts.
whole, that
and I
piece
can get some
is maybe
sleep.
not
I mean, I tell
noticeable
people,
or
like, look, the
doesn't
next 2
actually
weeks, I'm going to be
mean
useless.
anything. It doesn't
Don't
change
contact me. I will not be
anything,
able to do
or
a thing.
everything that you did actually didn't help it at all.
We've got a very large bed. It's good. I think we all sleep better. Even the king-sized bed we had was too small for 3 people and 2 cats and a dog. None of us got good sleep, and someone always ended up moving to the couch. I mean, not the animals. They slept like babies. When it was just and me, a king-sized bed felt both too huge and finally big enough. We could sprawl and stretch out and roll around all night and never disturb the other person. But it felt lonely to me, too. I missed the closeness and easy cuddling of the close quarters. We had to remember to spend time holding each other in bed. Our current bed feels too big in the same way, but I sleep in the middle so I can reach out and touch my partners on either side. The sense of loneliness of the large bed is softened by the reaching and the choosing to touch.
And I have been able to, that whole doorway thing where sometimes you walk through a door
I think
and you
to
no
myself,
longer remember
I
where
can't
you're
remember,
going because your brain kind of resets. Do I have enough spices for
It's
this
very
recipe?
apparent in this house
Crazy
because
have I
everything's,
reorganized
uh,
this
they're
cabinet?
big,
If I look at it,
I
I have been able to
immediately
sort
get
of push
in
myself,
there
feel guilty about it as a
I
result.
can stop,
Just get up from the living room and go into the
because
kitchen.
not a
and
lot of
going
my
through
parents
some
want
things
answers
to
to
the
the
yellow
yellow
room.
is
Is
giving
giving
myself
myself it works.
at least
It really
pause,
works. Because my brain
weirdly,
actually
also
just
helps a
apartment
lot.
has been really helpful
Circumstances.
to me too because
And,
for one reason or another,
yeah,
unlike
I've
normal
really-
rental
I've
apartments,
really
every room
liked
is a different
this cult.
apartment because it gives me lots of doorways to sort of reset my brain to go through.
There's a strange memory I have from my early 20s. I was visiting my mother, who lives in the town I grew up in, though not in the same house. We've always been a family that moves around a lot. Out of nowhere, she looks at me and says, "I worry that I didn't hold you enough as a child. It's what makes you uncomfortable with people touching you. You didn't get enough significant touch." I've never known what to do with that. I never felt deprived of touch as a child. I remember hugging and holding and being held by my family, though thinking back, I feel like what jumps to mind most readily is wanting to be held when I was anxious or scared. Maybe I'm remembering wrong. Maybe she is. I know I felt much more comfortable with touching when I realized that I got to decide when I was touched and when I wasn't. It taught me that, and I'm so thankful for it. The image is beautiful, despite it is beautiful, despite with swords just out of
because if I start to do the dishes, I will realize that I don't have enough room on the edge of my sink, and I'll need to put some of them away, and then I'll realize the cupboard is messy, and now I'm reorganizing the cupboard, and it occurs to me that
I'm on the fence about how I feel about artists that don't
but if I say to myself,
all parts of their work. I think we live in a really interesting time where you're not limited by your own ability or capability to certain types of process. But I still think that, if I'm a sculptor, but I sculpted with clay, and I have an idea for a piece that I think is a really good performance.
Since my dad got sick, I've been falling asleep on my face. It's the only way I can go down, with a hand against my forehead and one curl lower. I feel like I heard on a podcast or I read somewhere that this was unhealthy, that this was a dangerous way to sleep. But I think they were just trying to sell me a mattress. My mattress is comfortable. I sleep with one of those little strips over the bridge of my nose because it makes me snore less, which lets my partner sleep. But it also stops me from suffocating a little in my sleep when my mouth is closed and my nasal passages close up. I stop breathing for a bit and then wrench out of sleep, panicked, gasping, terrified.
I don't feel as alone when I
feel
look
like I
back
used
at
to do
myself
this at
and
least
go,
once every night.
the way that I process stuff
Wrenched out of sleep at 3 a.m.
is
gasping for air.
It's unique, but it's not
And it is
isolating.
loud in my brain. But then I have to try to repeat over and over and over again. And there's nothing I can do about it except for just trying to totally change the course of the shift to dive into what I'm doing. So
you
if
can call it
it's
constant lack of your ability to constant adrenaline, or a constant sound, or a constant grind, or a constant inhale.
It's like it's like kind of back that same feeling where
since I've hurt myself.
Like somebody says, "Oh, somebody has a crush on you,"
but
there's always that part of you that's like, "Ooh,"
it's
like
still
whether or not like you're in a monogamous relationship or you're in a situation like
exhausting pattern.
Whether or not you would act on it, there's part of your brain that's like
that I literally
flattered by that. It's like,
can't stop.
Yeah, somebody,
And the idea, people have, the idea that you can stop.
I have a friend
people have said, well, why don't you just think about something else? Why don't you read a book?
Or to someone else?
Well, okay, I'll read a book. Would be like bad question. How would I react?
Bar, and I got to say, I'm sorry, I can't go through I'm married, but you orphaned the thing. What it is, it was awesome. It was awesome. Like some random single woman tried to put me up at the bar, and I got telling each other, got to say no.
Be like in a camp, like it doesn't.
But the exciting part about that was like, people like me. People are attracted to me.
Stop.
And so there's something about that that's just kind of like
stop.
There's an adorable thing that Sweet Pea, our orange cat, does most nights. I'll be there on my side, head on my pillow, arms stretched out to the side, and she'll come curl up in the space between my arm and shoulder and face and curl in as tight as she can. I wrap my arm around her, and she buries her face in my hand. She purrs louder than any cat I've ever met, and just sounds so incredibly happy to be in close contact. It's a profoundly grounding, visceral thing. An animal who wants to be occupying the same space as you, expressing the simple joy of being family.
It's acceleration, not speed.
Since my dad got sick, I've been falling asleep on my face, only way I can go down, with a hand against my forehead and one curled lower. In my dream, that's how I'm hugging him, tightly, close, and it can go on as long as I need. My mother worried she didn't hold me enough as a child. She said that one afternoon, almost out of nowhere. I worried I hadn't held him enough, that he doesn't know how much I love him. But he does. He does.
The Fable and Folly Network, where fiction producers flourish.